Before we dive into the story, let us know in the comments which city you're watching from and enjoy the story. Marcus Eldridge had always prided himself on knowing every heartbeat of his business. As the founder and CEO of Eldridge Hotels, a mid-sized chain with 12 properties spread across 3 states, he had built his company from the ground up. Yet, in recent months, an unsettling disquiet had begun to gnaw at him. While quarterly reports and glossy customer surveys painted a picture of success, a series of hushed complaints, whispered in the back offices and murmured among employees, hinted at deeper problems. Whispers of unclean rooms, indifferent customer service, and mistreated staff had reached his ears. It was as if a silent undercurrent of discontent was pulsing beneath the polished veneer of his hotels. Late one autumn evening, as twilight deepened into a quiet, restless night, Marcus resolved to uncover the truth for himself. He would go undercover, an incognito guest at one of his busiest hotels in the heart of a sprawling metropolis. Determined and anxious, he meticulously crafted his disguise, a scruffy beard hastily applied with makeup, a pair of unremarkable glasses that blurred his once keen eyes, and thrift store clothes that spoke of modest means rather than corporate success. In his mind, the transformation was complete. No longer was he the confident CEO in tailored suits and expensive shoes. Tonight, he was just another traveler seeking refuge in a city that never truly slept. The city was alive with restless energy. Neon signs flickered on rain-soaked sidewalks, and the distant hum of traffic filled the air like a constant murmur. Marcus stepped out of his unassuming cab and approached the hotel, a building that should have exuded calm hospitality, but instead seemed to brood under the weight of neglect. Even from the lobby, he sensed a dissonance, a tension in the air that belied the promise of comfort. The reception desk, manned by a tired-looking clerk, had a palpable aura of disarray. Marcus checked in with a rehearsed nonchalance, his voice low and measured. "Room 507, please," he said, trying to hide the slight tremor of anticipation in his tone. The clerk's eyes briefly met his before sliding away, as if he had no desire to engage with anyone who might disrupt the fragile routine of the day. With a heavy set of keys in hand, Marcus ascended in a creaking elevator that groaned with every floor, each ding sounding like a muted plea for attention. In the narrow, dim corridors of the hotel, the signs of decay were subtle yet damning. Dust motes danced in the shafts of light that pierced the gloom. The patterned carpets, once vibrant, now bore the scars of neglect, crumbs trapped in fibers and faint, lingering stains that whispered of spills never properly attended to. Every step Marcus took deepened his sense of disquiet. What happened to the care and pride that once defined these halls? He wondered, his mind swirling with unspoken questions. Not far from his room, in a cramped supply closet tucked away behind a stack of cleaning carts, a soft sound of weeping cut through the oppressive silence. There, huddled against a wall lined with faded cleaning supplies, sat Lena, a young housekeeper with soft eyes and a face etched by both weariness and quiet resilience. Lena's uniform, once crisp and white, was now stained with the daily toll of relentless work. Her trembling hands clutched a frayed handkerchief, and tears glistened on her cheeks as she tried to stifle the flood of emotions. "I don't belong here," Lena thought, her inner voice heavy with despair. "Every day, I give everything, and yet no one sees how tired I am. The manager, Mr. Harrington, always hovers like a dark cloud, his voice cutting through our hopes. And Mrs. Winfield, she doesn't even pretend to care about us. Who will listen if we cry out?" Her mind raced with thoughts of the future, a future where perhaps someone would finally value the work that defined her existence. At that moment, Lena was not just a faceless employee. She was a soul brimming with unexpressed potential and dreams, crushed under the weight of systemic neglect. Meanwhile, across the lobby at the front desk, Oliver, whose tired eyes betrayed his struggle, juggled a myriad of tasks. The phone rang incessantly as he fielded guest inquiries with a practiced politeness that masked his internal turmoil. Every so often he would catch a glimpse of his own reflection in the polished counter, a reminder of the vibrant person he once aspired to be, before the pressures of an unforgiving system dulled his spirit. His inner thoughts swirled with regret and longing. I once believed that hospitality was about genuine care, but now it feels like I'm trapped in an endless cycle of frustration and fatigue, he mused silently. Oliver's hands shook ever so slightly as he punched in reservations and checked in guests, his mind drifting to memories of laughter and ambition that now seemed like relics of another life. Down in the hotel's modest café, Tessa, a young worker with an earnest smile and a passion for her craft, moved behind the counter with practiced grace. Tessa's days were spent crafting cups of steaming coffee and slices of homemade pie, yet beneath her warm exterior lay hidden pains. A recent injury to her wrist, a consequence of overzealous work and long hours, panged with every movement. As she carefully arranged the pastries and refilled the sugar jars, Tessa's inner monologue was laced with both determination and quiet sorrow. I need to keep going, she told herself, even if my body is telling me otherwise. But when will someone acknowledge that I'm hurting? Her soft eyes, usually bright with hope, now carried a glimmer of despair that she could barely conceal behind a forced smile. As the evening wore on, Marcus wandered the corridors with a mixture of clinical detachment and growing empathy. He made mental notes of every detail, the peeling wallpaper in the maintenance areas, the absent-minded glances of the exhausted staff, and the pervasive air of resignation that hung over every interaction. In the hotel restaurant, he witnessed an uncomfortable encounter between Mrs. Winfield and Oliver. Mrs. Winfield's tone was dismissive and sharp as she berated him for a minor oversight, her voice echoing in the vast, nearly empty dining room. Oliver's response was muted, his shoulders drooping in silent acquiescence. Why must I always bear the brunt of their impatience? He thought bitterly. The exchange left Marcus frowning, realizing that beneath the surface of his polished corporate reports lay a network of unaddressed grievances and demoralized hearts. Later that night, after the lobby had quieted and the few remaining guests had drifted off to their rooms, Marcus took the long route back to his temporary sanctuary, a modest room that was anything but luxurious. He sat on the edge of the narrow bed, the room illuminated by a solitary lamp that cast long solitary shadows on the faded wallpaper. The events of the evening played over in his mind like a broken film reel. How had I allowed things to slip so far out of control? He wondered, guilt and determination mingling within him. His thoughts turned back to Lena and the tear-streaked face he had glimpsed in that tiny closet. I must do something before more of my people suffer in silence. His pulse quickened as he realized that this undercover experience was not merely about uncovering physical shortcomings, it was about understanding the human cost of neglect and indifference. The following morning brought with it a brittle sunlight that filtered through the stained glass of the lobby. As the hotel began to stir with the low hum of early risers and the clatter of breakfast preparations, Marcus continued his investigation. He ordered a modest breakfast in the bustling cafe, sitting quietly in a corner as he observed the interactions between staff and guests. Tessa moved deftly among the tables, offering a kind word to a nervous traveler, yet her eyes occasionally betrayed a deep-seated pain. Oliver's shift at the front desk was marked by furtive glances and murmured apologies whenever a guest's frustration erupted. Even Lena, having wiped away her tears the previous night, now worked mechanically, her face an inscrutable mask of resignation. In one particularly revealing moment, Marcus found himself in the midst of a quiet conversation with a weary maintenance worker who had just fixed a leaking pipe near the lobby. The man's hands, calloused and stained with grease, trembled as he spoke of the increasing demands placed upon him. I work day and night, he confided, his voice low and rough. We're not given the tools or the time to do our jobs properly. They expect perfection, but they never offer any help. The man's eyes, dark and shadowed by long hours and hard labor, flickered with both anger and sorrow. Marcus listened intently, the weight of responsibility heavy upon him. How can I continue to call myself a leader when the very foundation of my business is crumbling under the strain of unrealistic expectations? He pondered silently. By midday, the evidence of systemic failure was undeniable. The hotel's infrastructure, its staffing, and its management all bore the scars of a neglect that had festered long enough to cause irreparable damage. The conversations with staff members were not isolated incidents. They were threads in a tapestry of discontent that spanned every corner of the property. The harsh words of Mrs. Winfield, the authoritarian presence of Mr. Harrington, and a silent suffering of employees like Lena, Oliver, and Tessa painted a picture of a system teetering on the edge of collapse. Unable to contain the moral weight of his discoveries any longer, Marcus made a decision that would forever alter the course of his enterprise. In the early afternoon, he arranged for a staff meeting, a rare and unexpected assembly that would pull back the curtain on the reality of his hotels. In the crowded conference room, where the air was thick with apprehension and tentative hope, employees gathered. They exchanged uncertain glances, each silently wondering what the day might bring. Marcus stepped to the front, his posture resolute yet his eyes betraying the sorrow of what he had witnessed. "Good afternoon, everyone," he began, his voice steady and imbued with an uncharacteristic vulnerability. "I have come here not as your CEO, but as someone who cares deeply about every one of you." A heavy silence settled over the room as murmurs died down. "Over the past few weeks, I have been listening to your concerns, your complaints, and your hopes. And what I have heard has been both painful and eye-opening." His gaze swept over the assembled staff, pausing on familiar faces that had carried burdens silently. "I have seen the toll that overwork and harsh management have taken on you. I have heard of injuries left untreated and of breaks that were denied. I have witnessed firsthand the disrespect you have endured." In that moment, the room seemed to hold its collective breath. Lena, who had spent the previous night cloaked in despair, felt a flicker of cautious hope stirring in her chest. Oliver's tired eyes widened in disbelief, and even Tessa, usually so composed, appeared visibly moved. Marcus continued, his words deliberate and filled with a resolve that resonated with every listener. "Effective immediately, I am taking drastic steps to address these issues. Mr. Harrington is no longer part of our management team, and Mrs. Winfield will be suspended pending a thorough review of her conduct." His announcement was met with a ripple of astonishment and relief. "Furthermore, we will be instituting sweeping changes: higher wages, additional staff to ensure manageable workloads, mandatory breaks, and performance bonuses that recognize your invaluable contributions. I promise to be here, not behind closed doors or distant offices, but among you, to listen and to act." The weight of his declaration settled into the room like a bomb. In whispered exchanges that followed, the employees felt an emerging sense of empowerment. For the first time in months, there was a glimmer of hope that their voices might finally be heard. As the meeting adjourned, Lena lingered behind, her eyes moist but resolute. "Mr. Eldridge," she began hesitantly, "I just want to thank you. I've felt so invisible here. I can't tell you how much this means to me." Marcus reached out and gently squeezed her hand, a gesture that conveyed both understanding and promise. "I will not let you down," he thought, as he observed the courage in her trembling gaze. In the days that followed, the transformation within the hotel was palpable. The previously oppressive atmosphere began to lighten, replaced by cautious optimism and genuine smiles. Marcus made regular visits to the hotel, each time engaging with the staff and listening to their stories. He walked the corridors not as a detached executive, but as a fellow human being determined to heal the fractures that had long divided them. Lena was soon promoted to the role of lead housekeeper, a position that recognized not only her tireless work, but also her innate ability to inspire and support her colleagues. In her new role, she moved through the cleaning schedules with a confident stride, her eyes no longer downcast but alight with determination. "This is a new beginning," she mused internally as she supervised the rest of the staff, "a chance to reclaim our dignity and pride." Oliver, emboldened by Marcus's open-door policy, began to speak up during staff meetings. No longer the silent bystander, he started to offer suggestions on improving guest services and streamlining check-in processes. His newfound confidence was mirrored in his interactions with guests, who began to notice a warmth in his greetings that had been absent before. Each smile he shared became a testament to the belief that he was finally seen and valued. "I have so much more to give," he reflected in moments of quiet satisfaction, "and now I know that my ideas matter." Tessa, too, experienced a profound shift. With the implementation of better staffing policies, she no longer had to overextend herself to meet unrealistic demands. The hotel provided her with proper medical care for her wrist injury, and she was granted the time and space to recover fully. In the cafe, she rediscovered the joy in crafting each cup of coffee, her artistry once again infused with genuine care. In the quiet moments between serving guests, Tessa would often sit by the counter, a soft smile on her lips, as she whispered to herself, "I am worth more than the pain I once endured." The changes extended beyond mere words on a piece of paper. They were woven into the daily rituals of the hotel, into the gentle nod of appreciation from a manager who now took the time to ask how an employee was faring, into the tangible improvement in the cleanliness of every room, and into the renewed sense of community that blossomed among the staff. Marcus found himself increasingly involved in the minutiae of the hotel's operations, his presence a constant reminder that leadership was not about distance and detachment, but about empathy, accountability, and respect. One crisp morning, as golden light streamed through the large windows of the hotel's main hall, Marcus stood quietly near the reception desk, observing the subtle interplay of smiles and greetings. The transformation was almost cinematic. He watched as Oliver confidently guided a family through the check-in process, his voice warm and assuring. Across the hall, Lena supervised her team with an ease that came from being both respected and supported. Even in the quiet hum of the cafe, Tessa's laughter mingled with the clink of porcelain cups, a melody of renewed hope. Marcus felt a deep sense of satisfaction mingled with a quiet determination to ensure that this progress would not be fleeting. In a reflective moment later that day, as Marcus sat in a secluded corner of the hotel's small garden, a peaceful enclave away from the buzz of everyday activity, he allowed himself to ponder the journey that had led him here. The path had been fraught with hard truths and uncomfortable revelations. He recalled the moments of guilt and regret as he had roamed the shadowed hallways, and the silent promises he had made to himself when he encountered Lena, Oliver, and Tessa in their most vulnerable states. "I have always believed in the power of genuine connection," he mused, the gentle rustle of leaves punctuating his thoughts. "But it is only when I truly see the people behind the titles and numbers that I can begin to lead them with the compassion they deserve." That evening, a celebratory dinner was organized in the hotel's modest banquet hall, a gathering meant to mark the turning point in the hotel's culture. Employees mingled freely, the air alive with laughter and the clink of glasses raised in toast. In a quiet conversation near the back of the room, Lena and Oliver shared their thoughts on the changes. "It feels like we're finally part of something real," Lena said softly, her eyes gleaming with a mixture of relief and cautious optimism. Oliver nodded, his voice imbued with sincere gratitude. "I always felt like I was just a cog in a machine. Now, I feel like I matter. Like our efforts are seen." Their words, tender and earnest, encapsulated the profound shift that had taken root in the once neglected corners of the hotel. Marcus moved among the guests that night, his presence both unassuming and reassuring. When he caught snippets of heartfelt thanks from long-time employees, he felt a swell of pride and humility. Yet, beneath the surface of this celebration lay a deep, personal reckoning. "I must never lose sight of this connection," he vowed silently. "Our people are not just resources, They are the lifeblood of everything we do. As weeks turned into months, the positive ripple effect of Marcus's reforms spread throughout the chain. Other hotels, inspired by the tangible improvements at the major city location, began to re-examine their own practices. In each establishment, staff members were treated with renewed respect, their voices welcomed in decisions both big and small. The transformation was not instantaneous, but it was steady, a testament to the power of empathetic leadership and a commitment to change. One particularly poignant moment came on a rainy afternoon, when Marcus returned to the renovated hotel for a routine checkup. Wandering through the newly spruced-up corridors, he found himself in the midst of a spontaneous conversation between Lena and a group of junior housekeepers. Their faces, once etched with resignation, now shone with pride and determination. "Lena," one of them said shyly, "I never thought I'd see the day when we felt valued. It's like you've shown us that our work matters." Lena smiled gently, her eyes reflecting both gratitude and an unspoken promise. This is just the beginning, she thought. We have the power to shape our own destiny. Marcus's own reflections during that walk were both introspective and hopeful. The transformation he had ignited was not merely a correction of administrative errors. It was a revival of the human spirit that had been smothered under the weight of corporate indifference. Every conversation, every small improvement in morale, reinforced his belief that leadership was not about wielding power from afar, but about walking alongside those who had built the very foundation of his success. Late one evening, as the hotel settled into a quiet lull, Marcus found himself alone in one of the now immaculate guest rooms. He sat on the edge of a neatly made bed and let his mind drift back over the journey. The vivid memories of tearful confessions, whispered complaints, and moments of unexpected connection played through his thoughts like a cherished yet painful montage. I have learned so much from these dedicated souls, he reflected, his eyes softening with both regret and resolve. Their struggles are my call to action, a reminder that true success is measured not in profits or accolades, but in the well-being and dignity of those who serve. In that silent room, illuminated only by the soft glow of a bedside lamp, Marcus resolved to institutionalize these changes across all Eldridge hotels. He drafted new policies with painstaking care, ensuring that every employee from the front desk attendant to the senior manager would be treated with fairness and respect. Regular check-ins were scheduled, anonymous feedback channels were established, and a new ethos of transparency and empathy was set in motion. His inner voice, once burdened by the cold mechanics of corporate strategy, now beat with the warmth of human connection. I must never forget that every decision I make has the power to uplift or to break the spirit of those who work for me. As the hotel continued to flourish under this new regime, the impact of Marcus's transformation rippled outward. Customers, too, began to notice the difference. Reviews started to reflect genuine warmth and attentive service. Guests commented not just on the cleanliness of their rooms, but on the kindness of the staff, a kindness born from a renewed sense of purpose and belonging. Marcus read these reviews with a quiet smile, each word a testament to the hard-won battles fought in the quiet corners of a once neglected establishment. In time, the story of the major city hotel became a beacon for change across the entire chain. Other CEOs and managers, inspired by the palpable improvements in both service and employee morale, sought to learn from Marcus's example. Conferences were held where he shared his experiences, urging leaders to step out of their offices and witness firsthand the lives affected by corporate policies. True leadership, he would say in measured, heartfelt tones, requires that we never lose sight of the human beings behind every door. Their dignity, their voices, and their dreams are what make our work truly worthwhile. Months later, on a crisp winter morning, as Marcus walked through the now thriving lobby of the hotel, he paused at a window and looked out at the bustling city street. The transformation was not merely physical, it was a renewal of spirit that had seeped into every corner of the building. He recalled the anguished cry of a housekeeper in a cramped closet, the silent frustration of a tired front desk clerk, and the determined resilience of a young cafe worker. Each memory had played its part in awakening him to the responsibilities he had long forgotten. In that reflective moment, Marcus felt both humble and empowered. The challenges he had faced were immense, yet the human capacity for change had proven stronger. His mind echoed with the whispered voices of those he had met: Lena's tearful gratitude, Oliver's renewed hope, Tess's quiet determination. Their stories were interwoven with his own, forming a tapestry of resilience and transformation that would continue to inspire him for years to come. And so, as the hotel buzzed with renewed life, and the corridors resonated with genuine care, Marcus Eldridge understood that leadership was not about the facade of power or the sheen of success. It was about the willingness to confront uncomfortable truths, to listen deeply, and to act with both heart and mind. In the quiet spaces between the clatter of daily life, he found his true calling: to serve, to heal, and to lead, not from an ivory tower, but from among those who had entrusted him with their hopes and their hard-won dreams. The journey was far from over. Every day, as the sun rose and set over the city, Marcus and his team continued to write new chapters in the evolving story of Eldridge Hotels, a story defined not by polished reports and pristine surfaces, but by the genuine human connections that made every challenge an opportunity to care, every setback a lesson in compassion, and every triumph a shared victory for all. What did you think of this story? Share your thoughts in the comments below. On a scale of 0 to 10, how would you rate this story? And don't forget to subscribe to the channel and click the notification bell to get all our upcoming stories and check out more inspiring stories here.